You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
This is Women's Media Center Live. I am Robin Morgan. And I'm still devastated after the elections. I'm totally wiped out with anxiety, fear, depression, and despair in the wake of that election. I don't understand how other people seem to function. They seem to be going about and doing things and returning, funny word, to normal, funnier word. Well, not me. I've spent nights walking the floors, days in a disbelieving days. I've awakened from brief naps that have a momentary normality that dismisses these feelings as just survived nightmares, only to realize they are not. They are not just bad dreams. You wake up and you're still in them. I've plodded through all 5 of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's stages of grief. This one, though, is not shakable. It seems lethally circular. It lands me back at stage 1 again as soon as it's completed. Nevertheless, I cling almost mindlessly to a sense of discipline and a habit of professionalism. A feeling of responsibility to listeners, a feeling that it's self-indulgent to let you down. Yet it is simply impossible to go on, just go on as if nothing has changed, as if 21st century America had not turned overnight into Germany in the early 1930s. This, despite conflicting realities in which friends tell me that I need not be afraid to expose you to my despair, to share it, if for no other reason than that it may well mirror and even possibly validate yours. Well, we shall see. We shall see. I won't know for a while. In the meantime, we do have a special guest for this week's conversation. She is the internationally known and honored Dr. Marianne Legato, who has been a pioneer in making women visible in science, in gender-focused medicine, and who has been researching the real differences between women and men, the female and the male, for a very long time indeed. So we'll begin with that conversation. And then I'll add what I can manage somehow to muster, if I can manage to muster it, in fighting words at the end of the program, which would be longer than usual because, well, there's no inside the headlines. He absorbs all the headlines, and so a great deal of what I would be putting in that segment goes into fighting words. And it'll be at the end. Oddly, in fact weirdly, in beginning this episode, I have no idea how it will end. We have to take a short pause here, but then I'll be back directly with my special guest for the conversation, Marianne Legato, M.D.
Subscribe to this program on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter at WMC Live, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/WMC Live, and visit us at WMCLive.com for more information about our show and our guests.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Dr. Marianne J. Legato is an American physician, author, lecturer, and renowned expert in gender-specific medicine, which focuses on understanding how biological sex and gender influence human health and the experience of diseases. Legato is the founder and director of the Partnership for Gender-Specific Medicine at Columbia University, where she specializes in the sex-specific aspects of men's and women's health. In 2006, she established the nonprofit Foundation for Gender-Specific Medicine, and her research has primarily centered on women and heart disease. She received the American Heart Association's Blakesley Award in 1992 for her book on cardiovascular disease written for the general public. Legato is the founder and editor of the Journal of Gender-Specific Medicine and Gender Medicine. She has authored several books, including Why Men Die First, How to Lengthen Your Lifespan, Eve's Rib, The New Science of Gender-Specific Medicine, and How It Can Save Your Life, The Female Heart, and Why Men Never Remember and Women Never Forget, which have been translated into multiple languages. And her latest textbook, The Plasticity of Sex, also received a Prose Award in 2021. She has been invited as a speaker at numerous lectures and conferences worldwide, served as the president of the First International Congress on Gender-Specific Medicine in Berlin in 2006, and she is the honorary president of subsequent international congresses on gender-specific medicine held in Vienna in 2007 and Stockholm in 2008. Marianne, welcome back to Women's Media Center Live.
Well, it's wonderful to be talking to you again, Robin, and certainly an absolutely opportune moment to stress the importance of attention to women in this particular moment in our history.
God, yes, in the wake of the election, you betcha. Well,
yes, wake is a good word, Robin.
Yeah, in the way, exactly. Oh, Marianne. I'll try to rouse myself from my ongoing torpor and despair, but I don't know about that. Anyway.
It's so very discouraging after the work of women like you and Gloria.
Well, and you.
So hard to do.
No.
And yes, and your sisters in science like me.
I know.
We all tried to focus on the new idea in the 1990s that men and women were substantively different in their normal function and in the way they experienced disease, in my case.
Yeah.
I was trained, as were all of my colleagues, to do investigations only on males. They were thought to be, quote, more stable because they didn't have fluctuations in their hormones.
And women were really just smaller men anyway, so what was the point?
Yeah, exactly.
No heart attack studies. We weren't in any heart attack studies. We weren't in any, oh my God, we just weren't there. We weren't.
That's right, and women were dying.
Yeah.
And women themselves believed that the chief cause of their death in 1990 was breast cancer, and it wasn't. It was cardiovascular disease.
That's quite right. Yeah.
Fascinating that women themselves didn't.
Well, because they convinced us, and they seemed to be the experts, and we thought, well, what they must know what they're saying, and we died. It's extraordinary. I want to ask you, since you're a dear and beloved friend and physician, and since you are the absolute and total expert, you're the go-to person on precisely this subject, I want to ask you to address something that is, I think, probably well beneath your pay grade, but what is, in that sense, gender-specific medicine, and to tell our listenership that.
Gender-specific medicine is the conviction and the demonstrated fact that men and women's basic physiology or function is different as a function of whether they're male or female,
Mm-hmm.
and that their experience of the same diseases are different depending on whether they are male or female.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent 10 years tilling the soil and planting the seeds with data, collecting it from everywhere that I could to prove that the facts were all around us, but that we hadn't really gotten it all together to understand the tremendously important concept that women were not small men, and that as I termed it, the bikini view of women as only of interest and different in their breast and uterine health was flawed. It was only after a decade of working with colleagues all over the world that we were able to establish the fact that women and men suffered entirely differently from illness, and to preserve and protect them in health was an entirely gender-specific effort, if you will.
You once said to me that every cell in the human body is sexed. Did I mishear?
That's right. Yes,
It
every
is.
cell has a sex. Yeah.
Well, what does
Our
that
friend
tell
Mark-
us? Every cell has a sex. Then what does that tell us about, for example, trans people who may have injections
Well-
or whatever to change certain hormonal aspects, but you can't change every cell in your body.
No, you can't. And I've written a book called The Plasticity of Sex, which actually won an award from the Association of American Editors called the Prose Award.
I'm not surprised.
We're just revising it. Elsevier asked me to do a second edition, so that's in process.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole issue of how biological sex is determined in the first place and how stable it is in the second place is of tremendous interest.
Wow.
And the extent of differences, or what I call deviations in sexual development, has really been underappreciated. So this whole tangled web of what does it all mean?
Yeah.
Are there more sexes than male or female? This whole debate I'm trying to reduce to the best science that I can find with colleagues that I'm recruiting from all over the world to try to make a coherent statement about it.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So there will be some sort of coherent statement.
I hope so.
In when does the revised book come out?
I've told them I'm not even going to try to produce it until 2026 because it's so complicated and I'm so busy, but they requested it, and so I'm doing it.
Wow, I'm so grateful. I'm so glad, because that confused me when you said that, and I went away and I pondered it in my heart, and I thought, what does that mean then? Really, does that mean that people cannot change their sex? Does that mean that people can? I mean, just where does that pin down? So we will learn. Well, go on. I mean, you're my I want to be her when I grow up person, because you are you're at the cusp of the best of science. You really are. I mean, with outer space and this now project. I mean, these are extraordinary research projects.
Well, we're working very hard. We have two new directions now, Robin. Whether we like it or not, politically or socially or culturally, humans are in space and will be going into space with much more frequency in the future, probably much more quickly than we believe or even anticipate.
Alarmingly, there'll be Elon Musk and his cohorts, but go on. Yeah.
Well, we certainly are going to go to the moon and to Mars, and the prospect of establishing human settlements on other planets or other celestial bodies is certainly now within the realm of reality. And as usual, Robin, until I got involved and involved my colleagues who are world leaders, very few thought of
Our women.
whether there were thought of what were the challenges that a male physiology faces in space, and what are the challenges specifically that a female faces in space. And so we're now involved in a tremendously interesting project in which I will try very hard to focus on and have my fellow scientists focus on the differences between the fitness or readiness of males and females for the rigors of space, which, as you know, are enormous. Yeah. But mainly, the lack of gravity has profound effects, and radiation is lethal. Not to mention the still, desolate silence of space, which has its own takes its own toll.
Effect. Wow.
Yeah. Then the second thing that is challenging us as a civilization is artificial intelligence.
Yes.
And so the power of AI and maybe the overpowering nature of AI is a subject of tremendous interest to us right now. And we are organizing in Rome next September a very high-level symposium with 24 world experts on the uses of AI in medicine, pitfalls and advantages. And by the way, I'm going to use this, Robin, to tell you something that's been this opportunity to tell you something that's really upsetting me about the way medicine is going, if you're interested.
Oh, I'm interested because I have thought up until this very moment that at least what we could say about AI was that it was a miracle when you applied it to medicine and science. The rest of it, I was a little alarmed at. But this at least was a miracle, and I say that because of having deep brain stimulation for Parkinson's and seeing all of these marvels. But go on now I'll get the other side.
Let me tell you my thoughts. In fact, I have in my long history of life on this earth in science written an op-ed piece or two, and I thought of writing an op-ed piece on this. COVID had a profound effect on our having to live in isolation. Spiritual, moral, cultural.
True, absolutely.
And social isolation.
Yeah.
And we became, A, alienated from one another, 2, not empathetic any longer because there was nobody to bounce off experiences or tales. We were living alone.
Right.
The other thing that came out of that was the fear of contact with other humans, which has resulted in video interviews of patients. Give me a break.
Of course, telemedicine.
Psychiatrists now interview patients from their homes.
Of course.
Physicians have video sessions which are thought to be able to address most problems. And while they have a certain utility, I can tell you there is no substitution for the sight of the patient, the color of the skin, the gait, the tone of voice.
Right.
I can tell you that my love for physical diagnosis, which is what we call the science of looking at and examining the patients, began when I was 10 years old. And this is how it happened. My father, who was a wonderfully charismatic surgeon, took me to New York. And we went to the Waldorf, and we had a dinner date, which was his habit. He'd take me out once a year for a glamorous dinner date. And this time we sat in the lobby of a place called Peacock Alley, and I don't know if it still exists.
Yes, it does still at the Waldorf.
And he said, now we're going to look at people as they go by, and I'm going to tell you about their illnesses.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my God. That's amazing.
And we listened to them speak. We looked at the color of their skin, their gait, how vivacious they were, whether they were intoxicated or sober. And he really taught me the very important
the art of observation.
The art of observation and physical diagnosis.
Yeah, of
And my
course.
conviction that we are retreating to our peril
Hmm.
from personal observation of and contact with the patient is really becoming reinforced.
Yeah.
I, as like all doctors, have to take a big examination every 10 years to remain board certified.
Hmm.
And two things fascinated me in the current recommendations for examining a patient. One was don't bother listening with your stethoscope to the neck for a bruit or a murmur or sound that would indicate that there was obstruction in the carotid artery. It's no longer necessary. No longer necessary.
Oh my
Because
God.
because we can always, we can always do an ultrasound of that patient, and if it becomes, but
Oh.
it's very unlikely that you'll find. So don't bother with that. The second thing is don't do a breast exam anymore. Clinical breast exam, not very
Oh.
important. Because women have mammograms anyway, and the yield or the skill of the physician to detect anything really
Oh
important.
my God.
And I think they're just stripping away the beauty of the art of taking the patient as a whole and really looking at the patient
Well, I think
carefully.
we are, and it's touch as well. It's the
Touch,
sense
yeah,
of touch.
yeah,
It's amazing. I mean,
right.
I have a friend who went for a checkup the other day, and she said the doctor didn't touch me, didn't touch me, did
Yeah,
everything, did
the other thing that
everything
upsets
by machine, you know.
exactly, exactly. So anyway, I know that I sound like an old person, which of course I am, but I am really mourning what I think happened with this terrible epidemic that started a downward slide coupled with the upward slide of technological
Yeah.
interventions that are now valuable and useful. And I'm not decrying technology. Don't misunderstand me.
No,
It's
I
terribly
understand. I
important.
understand.
But we are losing the patient-doctor
Relationship.
empathetic
Yeah.
relationship. And I
Ah.
think it's tragic,
Oh
tragic.
my
So
God.
I'm very glad that we have this opportunity for me to verbalize that, because I was thinking today I absolutely had to get that into the literature
Well,
someplace.
it's absolutely crucial as well. I mean,
Yeah,
it
I
just,
think so.
if that goes out of medicine, I don't, well, there's nothing that really replaces it, and I don't know what could even approximate it. I really don't.
Nothing will. But I think it's a reflection. This election that we all have so many opinions about does show the tremendous lack of understanding of one another, the tremendous inability of people to talk to each other,
Yeah.
to understand points of view that are not one's own, to discuss, to educate each other.
Where do
That's
you
what I
think
think.
that comes from? Do you think that comes from a growing lack of empathy? Do you think it comes
Yes,
from,
I
um,
think it comes from our. Do you think this is crazy, Robin? I think it comes from being isolated and fearful for so many months and months and months
well,
with
that
the
only,
COVID
yeah,
epidemic.
but that only explains it in COVID terms. This has been happening for some time. Not to that extent, granted, I certainly grant that. COVID pushed it right over the edge into
I think
hell.
it crystallized it. I think it crystallized it. I think it was a much more profound thing than we realized at the time. Much more profound.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you probably are right. You usually are. So, I mean, I knew immediately. Well, my first thought when I heard that there was going to be lockdown was, "Oh my God, the battered women." Because
Yeah, exactly.
I immediately thought all those women locked up with all those men who can't go to work and who get pissed at these women and who take it out on them. Oh my God, and the numbers were all absolutely out of this hemisphere. They were so big. They were
Well,
so
I've never
huge.
seen anything backslide so quickly as the status of women in the past 5 or 6 years. It's just as though all the purchase that we had, all the progress that we made, I just don't know. So sad.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's going to get worse, I'm afraid.
Given a Trump administration, I think it's a like an age of manhood will be against us, and I find it absolutely terrifying. Just
Do
beyond
do you
terror.
think men fear women, Robin?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Somebody said that today.
I do.
Why do you think that's so?
I think it's probably a very primitive based emotion that comes when you got one group of people who can make people inside them. And you have another group of people who can't, and they don't know why yet. All they just think, oh, this is why every one of your ancient fertility goddesses or goddesses, period, are goddesses. This is why the Venus of Willendorf exists. This is why the gods were all female, because it seemed so remarkable. It was pretty. It's oh my God, look at that! They can make babies, and I think there was probably an understandable fear, excitement, awe, akin to worship, which itself, depending on where you were and how it was happening and how long it took, how many centuries or eons to realize one and one together make, oh my goodness, look at that too. I think that the resentment began to replace the fear. And once they discovered that they did have something to do with it, then owning women, in other words, literally the capacity to possess, in every meaning of that word, women, the female, became arch importance, because then you controlled the future, you controlled inheritance, and that's where property came in, you see.
Right.
I think anyway. I mean, and I don't know any. I know a number of scholars who have put part of that together. I don't know anybody who has done it to the crazy lady extent that I have, but Marta Jambas and certainly I know some who have tried. But the problem is that you wind up saying, well, at one point the species believed in the divinity of women, and you go on from there. But a great many gentlemen seem to be stopped up at that point and have trouble getting it down their throat. And so you have tremendous resistance in early history in all those realms. And I listen, years and years ago, I heard a lecture by Margaret Mead, and I adored her. I thought she was the cat's meow. But I was just so frustrated and so almost personally hurt, because when I asked her what she thought of the women's movement, and we were fairly new at that point. It was like in the late 70s, maybe the early 80s, and expected her to, I don't know, say maybe some things critical, but some things positive. She said, "Oh, I'm very worried about the women's movement, because I think it could."
Is that right?
Yeah. And I said, well, and she said, because I think that women are not counting on the reaction of men, and that when men fully get it, I think it will be more bloody and more violent than anything this planet has seen before.
Good grief.
The male response. And you could have, the proverbial feather knocked me over. I said, but you who did the whole thing on sex roles and somehow you who have proven anthropologically that people don't have to live in certain ways, that they can choose others. If a house is burning down and half the people say, look, here's a door, and the other half say, no, let's go out in the window and let's line up and wait, even though some of us are dying in the process, the species will take the latter, and not the former. It doesn't parse. It doesn't make sense. And she said it doesn't have to make sense, but it will be, I fear, very, very, very violent.
Well, one of the things that I found very interesting, we had a seminar in Florence last year with the leaders in space physiology, and one man who does research both in Poland and at Yale, said he feared for women when they were involved in human settlements because they would be seen as the only way to keep the settlement perpetuated. And therefore, they would be reduced to reproductive entities rather than as any other kind of commodity, and would be much more controlled and scrutinized
Of course.
than they are in a different environment. I thought that was a very interesting.
It is, and it's
point of
terrifying.
view.
It is, and it's terrifying. That's right. I mean,
Well, it's true.
yeah, and it means as well that women, if and when you strip them of the capacity to bear and children, and by extension then raise children, be involved with children, etc. If that part goes, either because it's stripped from you or because there are other ways found more efficient in an AI world to produce them. If you strip women of this, then they have no particular function other than as other men. I mean, they're intelligent men. They're but they in fact add to the competition, don't they, with men? So and men notoriously don't adore competition. So why would you keep these women around? Do you put them in zoos? I mean, what do you do with these women unless there are other profound differences, which I always thought, I don't know whether I'm putting this in the past tense or in the present or even the future. I always kind of thought that women did have, I'm not an essentialist, but I did think that women had certain qualities that men could learn too. And I can give you examples of men learning them, and they're really quite heartwarming and wonderful. That would improve the species.
Right.
Now I don't know whether that's whistling Dixie or very naive.
Well, there are obviously traits of female physiology that would be wonderful if everybody could have been included.
Yeah. But I mean, the emotional ones stemming from those.
Exactly. Right.
Oh, Marianne. Well, what do you think? And this is a completely unreliable question, and you're welcome to say piffed and ignore it. But what do you think will happen in the next 4 to 8 years with this? I mean, I keep seeing everything from doomsday scenario, and I feel like I'm in Germany in the 1930s, early 1930s.
My darling, you are in Germany in the 1930s.
Yeah,
make no mistake.
That's what I feel like. Yeah.
I just read a fabulous book by Eric Latham about the Civil War, specifically the firing on Fort Sumter, and it was a fabulous recreation of exactly the environment in which we found ourselves just prior to this election, where Lincoln was in daily threat of assassination, and in fact he was assassinated, but the polarity of groups was so profound, and the lack of empathy or communication between the North and South was so frightening that Lincoln went in disguise from Illinois to Washington to get to his inauguration. But it was the first time that the Secret Service, then known as the Pinkerton men, had to be formed to protect him. And I thought it was a microcosm. It's as though we never change. We just go through these terrible cycles of bellicosity and disregard for one another and rage and violence.
Exactly.
Nothing new here.
Where you say to yourself, "Oh, we're back there again." Okay.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You have to play that one through in order to get to a little spot of sunlight somewhere, and then it'll be darkness again.
Right.
And I had one friend, actually it was a friend of Blake's, my son, who was talking about sitting in despair and so forth, and that there would be this bad period. And Blake pointed out that the last really bad period was called the Dark Ages, and it lasted 1,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't come that easily and go that easily, these periods, So it's a
I
problem.
think we're in for enormous suffering. That's my feeling. And
I think you're right.
I think my son's comment that each of us should do our best with our vocation and our talents that we possibly could, and remember our regard for each other, families and friends and anyone. And he's a lawyer, and he said, I plan personally to help anyone who is unjustly treated under the law that we have.
Oh.
And I thought, what a magnificent point of view.
Yes.
That helped me.
No, that is wonderful. That is wonderful that he says that.
Yeah,
I feel, and Blake says the same thing, and he's a musician. And I'm not sure of the practical use of a musician, or mostly even more so of a poet in these circumstances. But I stand ready to use it.
How can you say that? How can you say that? I have your book on my desk, as you know, and I read it very frequently during the week.
Well, if you thought that one was dark, brace yourself for the next one.
Okay, I will.
Oh, my dear. Well, this has been an incredibly interesting conversation, and I will go away with so many little nuggets, and I will look forward to reading The Plasticity of Sex, is it called?
Yes, you can get it on Amazon if you're interested, but it's a very complicated topic, and we did the best we could to put forth whatever science I could garner, and I think that when we do it again in 2026, there'll be a lot more information, and
it's fascinating.
Perhaps a cooler view and less confusion, I hope.
That is just incredibly fascinating. It could use a cool view because it's a lot hot under the collar, and people grow violent about it, and people grow enraged about it, and they don't even know what they're enraged about.
Exactly. It's important to try to get to the facts of the matter, or the truth of the matter, which is also the biggest challenge that we face. What is truth, said Pilate, was my guiding statement for most of my investigative life.
Right.
But
science.
Yeah, exactly.
Science is a pretty damn good guide, and
I hope so.
I believe in it. I believe in it.
Well, you've profited from it, thank God, right?
Well, yes, I have actually, both in health terms and in many terms like that. But also, it seems sane. It seems sane, just sane, and I appreciate sanity in this crazy world. So.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, Marianne, I'm so grateful to you for talking with us, and
well. It was a pleasure.
We could talk for many, many, many hours on. You have to come back, and we'll talk more regularly, if it's not too much of an imposition. Good philosophical, scientific talks. All right, my dear, bless you, and have your various trips around the world. Have a good time, I hope.
Thank you, Robert.
We have to take another brief pause here, but I will return in just a moment, and I will have some more fighting words for you when I come back.
The Women's Media Center, founded in 2005 by Jane Fonda, Gloria Steinem, and myself, is a progressive, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization working to make women visible and powerful in media. You can learn more about the WMC at womensmediacenter.com.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Margin of error. Those are fighting words. Shirley Hazard, the writer, once wrote, "Our great and secret fear is that America may turn out to be a phenomenon rather than a civilization." A malignant psychotic, a convicted felon, a sexual predator, an addictive liar who lethally botched management of a deadly pandemic, who conspired and acted to overturn the last U.S. election and unleashed a violent mob on the nation's capital to overthrow the government, a man who dismisses imminent climate disaster as a hoax, who defines this country as a garbage can for the world, and who shows open contempt for its military, calling fallen American soldiers suckers, and described by his former closest advisors, Vice President Mike Pence, his Chief of Staff John Kelly, as unfit, unstable, and a fascist. A man who threatened swift, fatal vengeance against his enemies, political, press, international, and citizenry, has won the United States presidency for the second time. He is embraced by a largely appointed by him radically reactionary Supreme Court and federal judiciary, both standing ready to aid him in assaults on the free press. A press now notably unfree while owned by oligarchs and technocrats. These are not the ravings of a paranoiac. These are retribution and revenge campaign promises that Trump announced from the podium. So it's time for election blame-it-ons. Blame it on men over 50. Blame it on young men in particular. Blame it on the sexism of black men. Blame it on the machismo Latino men. Blame it on misogynistic white European American men with only a high school diploma. Blame it on crazy liberals and wild-eyed radicals. Blame it on Gaza and attempted genocide, on Israel and attempted genocide, on Ukraine and Russia, on transgendered kids, or on wokeness. Blame it on Biden for stepping out of the race too late. Blame it on Kamala for daring to be a brown-skinned human being with a brain, a uterus, and a laugh. Blame it on hopelessly never electable anyway third-party candidates insistent on spoiling things. Blame it on Barack Obama, who in a recent book wondered if, quote, he had come along too soon, close quote. Blame it on white European American women who, although they improved their performance since the last presidential election, still did not come through in the numbers that, being a majority of this country's population, they should have. Exit polls showed that 45% of female voters cast ballots for Trump. That's staggering for Trump. And far more white women voted for Trump than black women did. The compounding rejection of first Hillary Clinton and then Kamala Harris has exposed an uncomfortable undercurrent of American society. Women do not yet necessarily agree on what counts as progress or a setback. And there was the heartbreak vote. The early results in Dearborn, Michigan, home to the nation's largest Arab American population, and a place Biden had won by 39 points, showed Trump well ahead, with Harris only narrowly leading the third-party candidate, Jill Stein, for second place. That's what trying to be fair to both sides of an insane 1,000-year conflict gets you, Kamala. Claim it's the internet, the algorithms, the lack of education. Sure, it's all those things. But at its heart, the election was about women's status in the U.S. of A. Women like Jocelyn Barnica, a Texas woman who was miscarrying and died of an infection because she received delayed emergency care, and who apparently had to perish because people still don't realize that their life policies kill women. Mina Timaraju, the chief executive of Reproductive Freedom for All, said Democrats must develop a long-term plan to directly confront the sexism, both within their own party and the nation, that hampered Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton. It's undeniable. So we must add it to the list of blame-it-ons. Run a superbly qualified white woman against a partly qualified, though young, black man. He wins. Doesn't quite make sense. Next time, run a well-qualified black man against a poorly qualified white man, and the black man wins. Okay, that makes sense. Then the third time, run a well-qualified black woman against a proven, very poorly qualified white man. But oops, he wins again. Backlash, with a bully in chief to lead the boys. On the other side of the aisle, just because you've been a great president with major progressive programs doesn't mean you lack an ego. After a bruisingly confused spring from which President Biden should have retired, yes, much earlier, he said he was going to be a transitional president. After that spring, Kamala Harris moved like lightning to replace Biden at the top of the ticket, and almost seamlessly ran a late start, all but perfect campaign of 107 days, during which time she gracefully refused to throw him overboard, yet did try to clarify her differences, deliver policy positions on everything from child care and health care, including reversal of the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision on Roe, to economics, immigration reform, foreign policy, environmental climate crises, and much more. She seemed to electrify women, black and white and all pigmentations, and the youth vote. And, given the recent widely covered, virulently racist anti-Latino rant spat out at a Madison Square Garden Trump rally by an insult comic, all Spanish-speaking Americans. And it was time, past time, 100 years since women won the vote, almost 250 since the Republic was born. It was way past time for our turn. Margin of error. So, now there are more female college students than men, huh? So, more women are now going into the job market, some even competing with men, in some cases earning as much or even more than men, huh? The bitches are in sports and in chef's hats and in combat and all over the damn place. Backlash big time. And with the chairman of all the chief bullies to lead them, to flex his fat, baggy non-muscles, spray his orange hair, tell his dirty jokes, and wink and leer. And the boys understand. The boys get it. The women might look the other way. The women might say, oh, they're just boys. They'll be boys, and be uncomfortable and kind of murmur, oh, George, oh, Herman. But we know we're back in the good old USA. As expected and predicted, America arrived with its own brand of fascism, with cowboy hats and corn dogs, with Christian devotion TV evangelism and family values, with trad wives for traditional, and book banning. As they settled into the nation's capital without needing to riot this time, their leader and his troops wasted not a moment. The past could have taught somebody something, wouldn't you think? I mean, Trump's own vice president, Pence, had refused to endorse him. Congresswoman Liz Cheney and her father, Dick Cheney, even. Dick Cheney denounced Trump. Some courageous individual Republicans in office came out and did too. Trump's longest-serving White House chief of staff, the retired four-star Marine General John Kelly, told the Times during the campaign that Trump met the literal definition of fascist. And the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, all branches of the military, pronounced Trump dangerous for the country. Yet even that was not enough to deter the enablers and the facilitators in the Republican Party who voted for Trump. It's impossible to take the proposed cabinet one by one because my gag reflex won't permit me to finish the sentence. But Elon Musk, with his paws on outer space development, billionaire tech giant frequently called the richest man in the world, he's not a clown. He has major security clearance, and despite his manic persona, enormous power. He's Trump's new best buddy, and was in closed meetings with him as they picked the cabinet on which Musk now sits. Oh, and Trump has insisted that the next Senate Majority Leader, the just-appointed Senator John Thune of South Dakota, has to allow for recess appointments, which will grant Trump the ability to unilaterally install cabinet members with no senatorial constitutional duties, like vetting or advice or consent. Margin of error. Meanwhile, out here in the real, or rather, the virtual world, an ad from Elon Musk's super PAC describes Kamala Harris as, quote, a C word, close quote. You heard that right. A big O C word. In 4 days, it had 500,000 views. He donated more than $120 million to Trump's re-election campaign. In cash. Not counting vehicles, travel, entertainment, and other donations, including his offer to buy the votes of Pennsylvanians to ensure they voted correctly. That one actually had to go to court. No word yet. Trump has promised Musk a role in government from which he can oversee the agencies that regulate his businesses. On Facebook, the phrase, "Your body, my choice," is currently trending, with 52,000 posts in the last 24 hours. Previous calls to repeal the 19th Amendment increased by 663% compared with the prior week. The top 10 X-posts at the time calling for repeal of the 19th Amendment received more than 4 million views collectively, and still counting. And to sum up, a word on everything around us. Trump called climate change a hoax as he pulled the U.S. out of the 2015 Paris Climate Accord during his first term, and he has said he'll do so again. He has also pledged to expand oil and gas production, eliminate subsidies for clean energy and electric vehicles, and roll back regulations aimed at reducing planet warming emissions. In 2018, considering a world 1.5 degrees warmer than in pre-industrial times, the world's scientists issued an unignorable warning about the consequences. In 2024, according to a carbon brief analysis, we have already surpassed 1.5. And now we know, almost surely, that the United States will be leading the world more swiftly and more belligerently into that danger zone. Margin of error. Disaster nationalism, a term to describe the global rightward wave, pandemic, inflation, mass immigration, alienation from the neoliberal politics of the past decades. It also follows precisely the pattern that those studying the political economy of climate change have been predicting now for decades. Intuitions of ecological hardship yielding an increasingly zero-sum view of the world. Civilians embracing lifeboat ethics and a dog-eat-dog approach to national identity that invites all of us on both sides of the aisle to shrink our circles of empathy smaller and smaller, defining success and failure in increasingly relative and transactional, even tribal terms. If I hear of any heartening news, I'll pass it on. Margin of.
And that's our show for this week. You can follow me on social media at The Robin Morgan. You can check out my blog at robinmorgan.net, and you can find my new novel, Parallax, and my just-out new book of poems, Harvesting Darkness, wherever books are sold. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Views expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. Executive producer, as well as founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. WMC president and co-executive producer for this program, Julie Burton. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Join us next time on Women's Media Center Live.